One of the most popular questions I get from landlords is, should I rent my apartment furnished or unfurnished? Today, live from the New York Real Estate Expo, we're going to take a deep dive into the pros and cons of each scenario. We have two great guest experts today. Jonah Hanig is the founder and CEO of ROVE Travel, which is a home rental marketplace and property management firm which operates in New York City, the Hamptons, Miami, and Aspen. Before funding ROVE Travel, he co-founded Explo, which is a Y Combinator-backed software company to make easier customer dashboards. Before that, he was a former Macquarie investment banker. One fun fact about him, he can run a marathon in 2 hours and 36 minutes. We also have with us today Josh Arcus, who is the founder of the Josh Arcus team at Brown Harris Stevens. He started his career in 2007 at a small boutique firm and now is one of the top producing brokers at Brown Harris Stevens, where he frequently ranks within the top 10 of brokers at his Brown Harris Stevens office. Guys, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thanks for having us.
I look forward to exploring this topic. Jonah, tell me more about this 2 hour and 36 minute marathon. That's like record level almost.
Not record level, I wish, but I ran track and cross country at Columbia University in college, so been running for a really long time. I got 76th place in the 2021 New York Marathon and have been semi-retired since, but I am hoping to jump back into a marathon soon.
That's super impressive though. I feel like if I ran one, I'd be like in the back with the pregnant women and the people smoking cigarettes while they're running, so that's super impressive. And Josh, tell me about your tenure at Brown Harris Stevens. How's it been?
It's been great. Before being at such a small boutique firm, I just didn't have the same access to a platform, management, marketing, and whatnot. And honestly, my career has probably, 2 or 3 times X since then.
Wow.
Since joining, despite the downturn before, like leading into COVID, and then everything that's been good and bad after, but it's been so great to be there.
What do you mean? Haven't like the past 6 or 7 years been a breeze? It really had, financial crises, COVID,
no
inflation.
laws have changed. No new forms have had to be added to our system. No, but I mean, honestly, like not needing to worry about any of those things anymore. Like when I was the principal, I had to worry about everything, and now I don't need to worry about those things. I just need to worry about my business.
Just about the clients and the market and inflation and whatever other government policy we have being thrown our way.
Don't remind me, please.
So Josh, I want to start with you. And on the traditional brokerage side, and I'm super excited for this episode because we're going to have 2 very different perspectives on furnished rentals. So from the traditional side, what percentage of the market of tenants want furnished versus unfurnished?
So, from our perspective, the average person is not looking for a furnished rental. And that is probably, our view is primarily Manhattan. And we do a big volume of units that are in the, kind of studio to 1 bedroom size. And those people typically are coming with their own stuff, and they're looking to be there 2 to 3 years maximum. And they're going to have their own furnishings. We have maybe 1 out of 25 clients that come along and are looking for a furnished rental for one reason or another, but it's not typically your kind of 12-month renter that's asking us for that. It's usually one case special situation demands.
Right, absolutely. No, and we see it a lot. And I would say, in my experience, I think maybe no more than 15% in the traditional model where you're representing landlord and tenants, really maybe 15% wants unfurnished or furnished rather at the most. And the lion's share is looking for unfurnished rentals.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think there's also something to be said about the fact that the percentage of landlords that are in the furnished business is very low. So there's not
a lot of inventory.
There's not a lot of inventory
furnished
to begin with, so people don't even assume that that's an option.
Right, absolutely. And Jonah, tell us a little more about ROVE Travel. So tell me about the concept, how it operates, and how you solve the needs for landlords when it comes to furnished rentals.
Yeah, of course. So we're the largest luxury marketplace for furnished rentals, 1 to 12 month rentals in New York City. And basically what we do is we work with landlords to help them make more money by rent or have more flexibility by renting the property on a 1 to 12 month basis as opposed to a traditional 1 to 2 year lease. And so functionally what that means is we're renting to clients anywhere from typically 1 to 6 month successive rentals. So we average 90% occupancy a year, and we really try and just help an owner make more money by charging more, like that premium that you typically get for a furnished rental compared to a non-furnished rental.
And how would you quantify that figure? So let's say the traditional apartment is unfurnished, you come in, and do you guys furnish it, or it's all owner furnishing?
No, we'll partner with an owner to help them furnish it, and we'll bring in a third-party furnishing firm, but we don't furnish apartments. Owners furnish them.
Are they buying that furniture, or are they renting the furniture?
In some cases they're renting, but vast majority of the time they're buying the furniture. I mean, look, there's a lot of advantages to having a furnished apartment. If you're going to sell an apartment, you want to sell it furnished. You don't want to sell it, you want to sell it staged at the very least. And so, like, functionally, if you want to use the apartment too, it also has to be furnished. And so, unless it's like, a rental building where the entire building's unfurnished and it's just rental units that are cycling, there's a lot, as a landlord, there's a lot of advantages to owning furnished.
And then how would you quantify like the premium you would get? So I've got a standard, 1 bedroom condo apartment in the West Village, unfurnished. I would get maybe $5,000 for it a month. Not really $5,000 anymore, probably $7,000 for that 1 bedroom. But how much additional value does renting it furnished provide?
The range is about 20 to 50%.
Wow.
The range is so you're gonna rent it for more for a shorter period of time. So someone who wants to rent for 30 to 60 days is gonna pay a premium compared to a 12-month furnished lease. The math that anyone's doing, they're looking at an unfurnished apartment. Maybe there's 2 units in the building that are identical. One's furnished, one's unfurnished. They're gonna think about what's the cost to rent furniture and furnish the unfurnished rental. And if it's the cost of renting furniture and leasing the unfurnished unit is less than the furnished unit, they're going to go rent the unfurnished one. So that cost is baked in. But that's not an option for a 3-month rental if you're pipe burst and you're have an insurance relocation situation. Then you want to keep your kids in the same school district. You're on the Upper East Side. You want to find another townhouse or another 4-bedroom apartment that's in the same location, or like similar location where your kids can still walk to school. And so there's a big premium for that.
Oh, great. So we're talking 25 to 50%, really depends on how short of term it is. And obviously, look, if your pipe bursts, you don't want to go and have to furnish an unfurnished apartment and rent furniture. You'd rather the easier option.
And the truth is that our experience with the insurance claim type situations is that the insurance companies are very unlikely to provide you with the living expenses of the apartment and pay for rental furniture. So having it all wrapped into one, from our perspective, is a huge advantage when we have clients who are looking for a furnished rental.
Right, absolutely. No, that's definitely a very good point. And then in your experience, what neighborhoods do better furnish? I get calls every day, especially from one-off landlords of, I'm gonna be away for a few years. I'm going to rent out my apartment. Should I leave it furnished? What are the neighborhoods where furnished rentals make sense versus which ones don't?
I think there's two primary reasons why an area might be attractive to a furnished renter. Either it's proximity to Midtown and centers of business, right? So if someone's looking for a corporate rental and they want to be near the office and they don't know New York City that well, being in the 50s and 40s, or even if it's maybe something close to like the financial district downtown, that's really attractive. The other option would be where there's high value for property to begin with, and where the replacement of that property for a short period of time for whatever the need is, whether it's insurance or you're doing renovation, people are likely to have that equal value rental a bit available, which I would say, frankly, is like Upper West Side, Upper East Side, and probably the Village.
Great. And how would you add to that, Jonah?
I mean, look, it's wherever people want to be. Like the most expensive neighborhoods for unfurnished rentals are the most expensive neighborhoods for furnished rentals too. Like there's demand everywhere, but obviously Tribeca, rents for more than Harlem for furnished and unfurnished.
Right, absolutely. And are there neighborhoods where it wouldn't make sense? Like if I were in Bushwick or,
It makes sense in every neighborhood. There's situations where someone is a New York City resident or relocating to New York and becoming a resident, and they need a furnished rental for 1 to 12 months. They're trying out a new neighborhood, insurance relocation, job relocation. Your job relocates you, and you're here for 3 months, and you don't know how long it's gonna drag on for. It could be in any neighborhood.
Any neighborhood. So
yeah, that could be in Like if you live in Bushwick and your kids go to school in Bushwick, and you're renovating your house, you're going to want to probably stay in Bushwick.
Right, absolutely. So there'd be kind of a demand across the board, but obviously the business districts might command more because you have all the consultants that are coming in.
Yeah, there's a portion of the furnished rental business which is based on being a better option than a hotel room, which I think is the same thing with Airbnb, right? But since we can't do that here, if it's the replacement for a hotel unit, it's like, where are there hotels? There's technically hotels everywhere, but maybe in certain areas like the Upper East Side where there are 0 hotels, without being the Mark or the Surrey, being a furnished rental on the Upper East Side is probably being a much more scarce product.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you have, 3 kids and a nanny, you probably don't want to be in 3 hotel rooms. You want to have, 1 apartment with a kitchen and a living room that you can use. And so for anything longer than a couple weeks, we have a 30-night minimum, but anything longer than a couple weeks, like living in a hotel, no matter who you are, is not ideal.
Although room service ain't the worst thing, definitely
That's
not
true.
the worst
thing. You can afford the penthouse at the Plaza, which is like $200,000 a month, probably the most overpriced apartment in New York City. Sure.
Absolutely. And here's a question that I think about a lot. And when I go to apartments, so, sometimes the landlord's like, hey, I want to rent this furnished. And you look around at their furniture and it's like, oh, you must have inherited this couch from your grandmother. If a landlord is thinking about going the furnished route, what would the expectation be in terms of quality of furniture, the amount of furniture? Is it, oh, I'm going to try to rent it furnished, but I have a bunch of old junk that I'm going to leave behind? What are the expectations from tenants?
Yeah. That scenario is really hard for us. It's probably the kind of situation where you would thrive. But for us, the problem is that people, first of all, know exactly what they paid for every piece of furniture. And so they get very kind of caught up in what their perceived value of the property is. And getting them to move out some stuff and not all of it is a really big challenge. We've seen a lot of times when people have a lot of built-ins, that's maybe the biggest challenge, because even if I move out all the old-looking, grandma type stuff that they have, I still need to deal with the fact that they have a library built out in a room that should be a bedroom, which would be the best use of their as a furnished rental, but it's a library.
Right, it reads very much office-like and not...
Right, so how am I supposed to market that?
Yeah,
right.
This is one of the primary pain points for people that we really solve, which is a lot of owners don't know how to furnish a product. If you work with, you just rent a furnished property, you negotiate it on Street Easy, you go back and forth for 3 weeks, trying to figure out what the price is in the lease for, an apartment that's a regular apartment that's furnished, and you get there, the owner has, tons of personal clutter everywhere. They might have ugly furniture. They might have it staged for sale and not actually staged to rent, meaning they don't have linens, they don't have towels, they don't have soap, they don't have cleaning supplies. We standardize that and make it so you can just press a button, book, and move in tomorrow to a turnkey furnished rental. Now, obviously, getting the owner on the same page can be a challenge. And so, that is one of the challenges of our business, is just getting more properties and more owners aligned with what the expectation for a true turnkey furnished rental is.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think you guys add real value to the market from that perspective, because a lot of times furnished owners okay, they can just use all my stuff. But if their stuff is in bad condition, or if they don't have enough stuff, that can be a huge turnoff.
Yeah.
In my experience, the furnished rentals that I've seen that have done the best, they're in high quality furniture. They have complete sets of everything. When you start getting into this low end furniture, especially the pleather,
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen every piece of pleather that somebody tries to rent?
Yeah.
You have it's flaking off, and it looks like the dog chewed it up or something like that. That's not exactly something that an owner would want. Then the other challenge you do have is, okay, well, I want everything, but I don't want X, Y, Z. That then adds a lot of complication to the owner because they wanted to rent it furnished in the first place because they don't want to have to arrange for storage. And now I got to figure out what to do with the bed and what to do with the couch and those kind of things. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Dylan Pichulik, CEO of XL Real Property Management, New York's most trusted name in luxury property management since 2012. We specialize in managing individual apartments, townhouses, and rental buildings held by absentee owners. We maintain our properties with the highest standards of quality and service so that owners can choose a hassle-free approach to real estate investing. Rented or owner-occupied, we handle it all. For more information, contact us at xl-rpm.com.
Hi, I'm Evan Greenberg with Langdon Title. I specialize in title insurance across New York, helping real estate attorneys, agents, and brokers close with confidence. I solve problems fast and keep your deals moving. Contact me anytime.
All right, we're back and we're talking about furnished versus unfurnished rentals. Now, in the unfurnished market, it's very seasonal. We have the high season, we have the low season. Is there a different calendar for furnished rentals? Are your properties in more demand during certain seasons? Or tell me about when furnished rentals thrive the most.
No, there's definitely a seasonality similar to rental season. Obviously people are renting furnished rentals year round, but late spring, summer, and fall definitely do the best for furnished rentals. There's a premium. You're going to pay more for rental in July, a lot more, almost double, honestly, for rental in July for 1 month than you'd pay in January. So there's the cost, because there's so much more inventory relative to people renting, prices go down a lot in January and February and March. No, I mean, it's not like crazy, but there's definitely a lot of the premium that you can achieve with a 1 or 2 month rental is late spring, summer, and fall.
Okay,
is that more your outside of New York City portfolio, or including New York City as well?
I'm strictly speaking about New York City.
Yeah, I would. What would you say?
No, I mean, we always get a ton of requests during the summer because people are coming into the city for summer internships, or that's usually the time when people are starting to do renovations. There's a huge demand. I mean, if you're in a really big Fifth Avenue, Park Avenue apartment, and you have summer work rules, and from Memorial Day to Labor Day is the only time you can be doing it, they're going to be coming to you looking for a furnished rental.
Right.
And then I guess we haven't necessarily experienced this so much, but I would assume that during the holidays, the December break, there must be huge demand, but obviously the challenge of needing to be 30 days can maybe limit that.
Yeah, December is a popular month, but we don't have nightly or holiday pricing because we don't do nightly rentals. So we unfortunately can't capture that excess demand like a hotel can. Obviously the holidays are huge for hotels.
Yeah, I can see how that would be the case for sure. And then, are there any particular layouts that do better? Like if I've got a 1-bedroom versus a 4-bedroom, where's the sweet spot on furnished rentals? Where do you think most of the market is looking, if they are looking?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, because we're usually dealing with it on a more one-off situation, we've seen that there's usually either demand on the much smaller side, so like studio to 1-bedroom for more of the corporate or internship type demand, or big, like really big, like 4 bedrooms plus that people need properties, 2,500 square feet or more. Definitely there's not a lot there for the same reason mentioned before, which is that, let's say, you're gonna need 3 hotel rooms to fit your family or something. 1 4-bedroom apartment replaces that entirely.
Absolutely. And where's your biggest demand? Like what category of?
The majority, we're getting more into studios and one bedrooms, but the majority of our properties are 2 to 5 bedrooms, larger townhouses and condos. And so, though, what I would say, common demand for people spending a lot of money, let's say 20 to 50,000 a month. They're looking for large loft-like common spaces, Soho loft, Tribeca townhouse. They do super well. Having a big living room and an open kitchen is definitely really in demand. Especially if you're staying with multiple people or you have a family, having that common space is very desirable.
Absolutely. And what would you say would be the con of renting your apartment furnished? And let's even make that question a little more complex. I'm a landlord. I want to rent out my apartment I'm being, reassigned to Europe for the next 3 years. What advice would you give to that landlord regarding whether or not they rent it furnished or unfurnished?
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, the first thing is that if they love their furniture and they like the way it is, they need to consider that someone else will be using it for 2 to 3 years.
Wear and tear, it's going to happen.
There's going to be wear and tear, and so if you really care about your furniture, consider storing it and then potentially bringing in a company that would furnish it for you and rent it out furnished. I think that for a long-term rental, people typically are going to be bringing their own furniture. It would have to be more on the short-term side. So I think
I'll disagree with you here a little bit. There's a lot of demand for furnished long-term rentals. You're just not going to get the same premium that 1 to 3 months. So there are.
You do get them. I've seen cases where we've had them for 5 years.
We rent for 12 to 24 months all the time to people. What I would say is, again, like someone's doing the math of can I furnish this? If I had the same apartment and paid less for an unfurnished, can I? Is the cost of furnishing an unfurnished apartment going to be less than renting a furnished apartment? If it is, then they're not going to pay for the furnished apartment. But the other thing is is the furniture, like you're saying, is the furniture nice?
Right.
Like no one wants to rent a half furnished unit.
Right.
Nobody does.
And a lot of landlords
every room
are like,
needs to have beds. It needs to be
dresser,
fully furnished. Yeah.
a coffee table.
I used to live in a half furnished building in West Village, and a very old school landlord. He's like, well, yeah, there's no cups or silverware. There's 2 cans, but it's furnished. And I'm like, yeah, well, sure, it's on Charles Street, so I'm gonna pay a lot of money for this and get the cups and pans myself. But is that a good experience? No.
What would you say the difference in the premium is for an apartment that's rented furnished short term, so less than 6 months, versus rented furnished long term?
The premium for furnished long term is probably closer to 10 to 30%, depending on the building and the unit and the furniture quality. And short term, 1 to 2 month rentals, 30 to 50% range.
Wow. Okay.
An apartment that rents for $10,000 a month unfurnished probably is renting for 12 or 13 furnished, and is probably renting for 13 to 17,000 a month for 1 to 2 month increments. Based on the time of the year.
Here would be my advice. If you're a landlord and you're about to rent out your apartment and it is fully furnished, I would list it both ways and see how it goes. If you can get somebody who loves the furniture, hopefully, the challenge with the furnished rentals is, like you said, sometimes they don't stay a while. You do get rare exceptions where I'm building a townhouse, it's going to take me 3-4 years. They'll stay a while. But if you're a one-off landlord and you're debating what to do, list it both ways. Yeah. If you get somebody who wants the furniture and isn't going to be too much of a pain about it, they don't want to change certain things, you can do it that way. If you find somebody who wants it unfurnished,
and you can have
the answer's
2
been
prices.
made for you.
Right.
You
can
also
have 2 prices.
That is my advice if you want a long-term tenant.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But even on the 2 prices, sometimes, if I've got a furnished apartment, I've got to unfurnish it because I'm coming back, the amount of cost to move the furniture, to pay for storage, you're sometimes costing yourself more money. So even if you find someone to take it with no premium, and you're coming back for sure in 2 years after your assignment, sometimes you've done better.
Sure. There's also the ease of mind aspect of it, though.
Ease of mind, no storage, no headache. But, for those of you who are going to rent on a long-term basis into perpetuity, or at least for the foreseeable future, sometimes it makes sense just to take the furniture out, rent it unfurnished with no headache, and do it that way.
Yeah, I think another reason a lot of properties are, there's a lot of rental buildings where the landlords don't want to rent furnished. There's also a lot of co-ops where, they have a 1 or 2 year lease minimum, and it's not really as applicable for furnished. If you have a furnished rental, a lot of people are going to reach out about short term or like 1 to 3 month leases. And they're going to be like, well, I pay you double for a 2 month lease. And it's tempting, but obviously if you're in a co-op, you can't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, most buildings are going to have that 1 to 2 year minimum, and then, and also even in some cases on shorter term, unless you can consistently occupy the space, you're not going to do so well in that investment because you'll get eaten alive by vacancy loss and management headaches. All right, well, thank you both for being here today.
Thanks
this was incredibly insightful. Hopefully we've provided our landlords with the right instruction on what they should be doing as they consider renting out their places. I'm Dylan Pichulik. Thank you so much for joining us in Managing Manhattan.